Hello, Reading Writing 1 students. It is week 30 and we are moving right along. It's hard to believe we're nearing so close to the end, but we are. And so let's get started with your writing. Last week on your writing you did a 4-square about sundaes, hot fudge sundaes, and you had something that you were working on that looks like this. And remember what you did was it gave you the squares. It really gave you the subtopics and the squares, but then you had to come up with a detail for each one of the subtopics, and that's what we did last week. So we're going to write it into a paragraph this week. So go ahead and get out your your finished 4-square that you did last week, and if you put complete sentences on these 4 squares, then your job is super easy this week. All you're going to be doing is copying the sentences onto a piece of paper. All right, so get that out. You do have a paper also that looks like this. I've already started one for you. All right, so but before we get started on this, I would like to go ahead and have you put your heading on there. I have another piece of paper in your packet that actually has kind of some notes on it. It looks like this. Lots of writing on here, and this is just for you to look at. It is not for you to write on. When you are writing on your paper, I would like you to make sure that your name is on the top here. Make sure your date is right underneath it. And then there's a skipped space. And then we have our title. On this one, it's a title. Okay? Our title is the same as your topic sentence. So the difference between the topic sentence, or your first sentence of your paragraph, and your title is that the title has a lot more capital letters. All the words in this title are capitalized. Now when you're writing a title of anything, if you look at a book or in a magazine or anything, you'll see that most of the words are capitalized. There's some little words like the and of. If they're in the middle, they don't get capitalized. If they're in the beginning, they always do. All right, so that's why I've done it this way. I'd like you to, actually on your paper, I've already done it for you. All right, the main thing you need to do is put your name, your date on it. I've also written your topic sentence, your first sentence. I love hot fudge sundaes. And if you look at this, see there's an arrow. Your first line is indented. Your second line is on the edge, and all the rest of the lines are on the edge. So all you're going to do now is write one sentence right after the other. Okay, right after the other until you are all done writing everything in your 4-square. So that means that you are going to write, whoops, let me get this 4-square part. So that means you're going to write, first of all, the topic sentence, which is already on there. Then you're going to write 2 sentences. The ice cream is so cool, and right after that, the detail that you wrote. Then the next sentence, the fudge is very chocolatey, and then the sentence after that is your detail. Then you're going to write, I like the cherry on top, and then you're going to write your detail. And then, of course, your summary sentence. Now, that means you will have, when you are done with your paragraph, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sentences in your paragraph. That's a pretty good paragraph. Okay? So if you finish that, you are done with your writing, and that's a good job, and that'll take you a little bit to do. So I'm going to go on. That's really all we're going to do today for writing. It's mostly just writing this paragraph here. We've already done all the hard work for it. So it's just the copying. Now we have been reading this book, and I would like to ask you some questions, and of course you can't really answer them so I can hear it, but you can answer them in your head because there's some important questions to think about while you're reading this book. And we've talked about these questions in almost all the books that we've read this year. So this is nothing new, and you have, in your composition book, you have something about pretty much every one of these too. And so my questions are, first of all, what do you think of this book? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What are some things you do like it, and what are some things you don't like about it? Okay, that's my first question. And then think about Laura's life. Okay, Laura's the little girl that's pretty much the main character in here. It's written from her point of view. What's her life like compared to yours? What are some things that are different compared to your life? What are some things that are the same compared to your life? Okay, there are some real basic things that are the same. She has a mama and a papa and siblings. Hers are just sisters. Some people have brothers and sisters. So she has that. Her house is quite a bit different than yours probably. And her toys are probably quite a bit different. All right, so think about some things that are alike about Laura's life and that are different about Laura's life. What is the setting in this book? Remember, the setting is the time and the place. Remember your picture of the clock and the little map to help you remember? Well, the time was way before you were born, way before I was born, all right, in the 1800s. And the place was up in Wisconsin in some big woods, and they didn't have any neighbors, just their little house, their little cabin in the middle of the woods, all by themselves. So they didn't have neighbors to go to play with, did they? All right, they didn't have stores and things they could go to, and they certainly didn't have things like cars or anything like that. Okay, so the setting. Okay, and the main characters. We've already sort of talked about the main characters. We have Ma, Pa, and then we have her sister Mary, who's her older sister. This is Laura, and then her younger sister Carrie. Okay, those are the five main characters in this story. And they all have their own different personalities, don't they? You hear a little bit more about Mary and Laura than you do about Carrie because she was just a baby in this story. All right, but it does talk about her. Okay, and so every story has some kind of a problem. Remember, they have the problem, and then the story tells about how it's solved. What are some problems that are in this story? What are the way they're solved? Are they solved yet? Some of them might not be solved until later on. But what are some of the stories? What are some of the things that Laura struggles with or has a little hard time with? Okay, what are they? Is there anything in this story that makes you think that the author wanted you to learn something from it? Okay, there's one about her grandfather or her great-grandfather, and there's what about the one about the I don't know if that you're here yet, but when they thought there was a cow outside and it wasn't a cow, it was something else. There's an important lesson to be learned there. Why do you think that Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote this book? This book genre is a non-fiction book. I mean, it's in the fiction part of the library usually because it's a story, it's a fun story, but truly it is a nonfiction because the stuff, the things in this story are true. They were written by this person, Laura Ingalls Wilder, and Laura Ingalls Wilder was this little girl. So why do you think she wrote this book? She didn't write it until she was older, until she was an older adult, I think in her 60s or something like that. And she just wanted people, she wanted young, boys and girls to know about what life was like back at that time, because they didn't know, they hadn't experienced it. And so she started writing these stories. And she had a daughter who encouraged her to do that. All right. So those are the main questions I would like you to think about while you're reading this story. Always be thinking about some things that you might be learning. Think about things that are new that you've never known before, and think about things that are really interesting to you. And everybody has different things that they think are interesting. So just because someone else thinks something's interesting doesn't necessarily mean that you do, but you might think something else is. So it's everybody kind of has their own individual ways of thinking, and that's why books are so great, because different people can get different things out of them. So I hope you enjoy this book, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.